Hello, hello, hello. If you are watching this stream live, you are also novelly curious about what Will Borgen brings to the table for the Rangers. I intentionally did not go ahead and look at this stuff ahead of time because I wanted to look at this for the first time as we're going along because I didn't want my preconceived notions to impact how I perceive the player. And I know a lot of people, they saw the evolving wild card, they saw the J Fresh hockey card, and there's a lot more to player evaluation than wins above replacement. And I try not to use those cards when I'm forming my opinions because an opinion is nuanced. There's layers, there's degrees, and for something like this, where we're talking about how good a player is, we've got to unpack it from a bunch of different perspectives. We need to talk about the traits. We need to talk about the context of their play, who they play with, what they're expected to do in their minutes. And there's a lot. There is a lot to unpack. Just the simple matter of fact that the Kraken play a very different style than what the Rangers do. Does that help Borgen? Does that help Borgen? And we're going to try and get to the bottom of that. We're going to address it from a few different ways. But I, for one, am not new to this idea. Uh, I had seen more than one person mention William Borgen as an idea for the Rangers as a deadline addition to be that last defenseman to finalize the group. That was before they had traded Trouba. Same thing with the Oilers. Will Borgen has been mentioned on a number of lists for Oilers deadline additions, and being that I do Locked On Oilers as well on top of Liberty Blue, he's somebody I have a tertiary understanding of. So we're going to walk through our paces. We're going to hit all the bases we typically do when we do one of these player evaluations. We'll talk the draft pedigree, where he was taken, by what organization, what his path was. Was he major, junior, college? How long was he at the lower levels? How long did it take for him to become an NHL regular? We'll talk about the context of his minutes, what types of situations he plays in. Does he kill penalties? Does he power play? We will hit all of the baseline contextual factors. We'll look at the counting stats. There aren't a lot. This is not an offensive defenseman by trade. He has okay puck skills. We'll look at the transition stats. We'll look at the value stats. We'll look at the NHL edge stats. There's a lot to get to. My goal is to be in and out of here in 40 minutes or so. And my allergies have been killing me today. So if I go into a sneezing fit, no, I'm not dying, but I do on occasion rattle off 5 or 6 in a row. So let's get on into it. Number one, let's share this screen. Let's start at Hockey DB. So this is on your screen right now. You are looking at Borgen's Hockey DB card. A 4th round pick 9 years ago. 6'3", 204. American. All of that matters because, as one of my friends jokingly said, the Rangers got Trouba and he doesn't cost $8 million. And obviously, Borgen is not nearly as accomplished of a player as Trouba, but the size, the weight, being American, the Rangers care about that stuff for whatever reason. There's a reason they have slowly but surely stocked the place with national development team program guys, with guys Chris Drury through his affiliations with USA Hockey has familiarity with. And I'm not saying that Borgen matters a whole lot in that respect, because you see St. Cloud State college hockey, 2 years in the a cup of coffee in the NHL, that 1920 season, bulk of the time in the AHL. But we're talking about somebody who's 28 years old now and has really only been an NHL regular for 2 seasons. That should give you pause. If you are acquiring a 28-year-old who has 2 real NHL seasons under his belt, 82, he's at 33 games this year. 28 years old. I'm not misquoting. I am not misattributing. He is 28 years old. He has 2 real seasons of NHL experience. That alone should tell you, okay, there's something in this guy's profile that he didn't blossom well. He didn't develop well. He was in a situation where he didn't get a lot of opportunity, because at 28 years old, you are what you are as a player. And there's not really the massive jumps in statistical performance you would find with a late bloomer at 28. A late bloomer in the NHL is 25. 28, you are what you are at that point. Some would argue you might even start to physically decline as a player at 28 years old. Typically, though, the age curve makes up for that, because that's when you start to play the most minutes you're going to play in your entire career. The older you get, until about 32, you're going to have more and more opportunities to play. That's why those UFAs, the guys who get there at 28, 29, that is typically going to be the most ice you are ever going to get in your life, is when you are getting that big contract. A team has invested money in you and they expect you to be able to do a lot for them. So we've established that Will Borgen is a slow rolling player, somebody who has taken a while to stick at the NHL level. And that alone gives you a little bit of pause. At least it should. It should. Next up, we're going to tackle his quality of competition. Then we'll dive into line mates. So I'm going to share my screen again. This is quality of competition. This is Puck IQ. This is a great resource if you're ever curious. So on the bottom is Dangerous Fenwick 4. I will just make it scoring chances to make it simpler so I don't have to explain the difference. The x-axis, that's left to right, is chances for percentage, and then up and down, the lower someone is, the more ice time they get against good competition. So for example, this year, 42% of his ice time is against bottom, what you would consider fourth line players. They have 44% of the scoring chances in those minutes. Now, last year, you see significantly better play against low quality competition. More ice time, 40, 33, 33. He's getting killed in these minutes. In the 40% of his ice time where he's playing against quality competition, first liners, he's getting, the other team has 43% of the chances. Now, it's interesting that they have 63% of the goals and 43% of the scoring chances. We'll go under the hood more and look a little bit more about that, little bit more at that contextually. We'll talk about the quality of scoring chances, what have you. But this and this, so scoring chances, Fenwick, goals for, these being as opposite as they are, is interesting and bears further investigation. But for the most part, this is a player who's not playing a lot against great competition in his career. Last year, 40%, that's probably the most he's had in his career. If we cycle through real quick, 27, 9. Last year, 24. This year, 24. 3 years ago, 31. So last season, the most he's ever played against quality competition. Good results here in terms of quality of scoring chance and good results in terms of goals. This gives me a little bit of pause because Seattle is kind of a possession team. Seattle is kind of a Walmart version of what the Hurricanes like to do. They're a group that they're a group that likes to play possession because they don't have a ton of high-end talent. Like, I'm still relatively bullish on Matty Beniers as far as being a good player. I don't think Matty Beniers is a superstar. I don't think he's anything particularly remarkable. But as far as Borgen, continuing on this conversation, we'll pull up Dauber prospect, share screen. Okay, make sure it's a decent size. Yeah, okay. So we want individual defense. We want Borgen. And we want this season. So his most common line mate, wait, we want to make this even strength just to be safe. Yes, his most common line mate, Joshua Mahura, who, I'm going to be fair with you, I watch a lot of puck. I have no earthly idea who that is. So give me 1 second so I can pull up his hockey reference. And that person does not populate on hockey reference. Maybe on Hockey DB. Does he populate? Yeah, he populates on Hockey DB. So Josh Mahura, his most common line mate, was a third-round pick in 2016. He has one real season of NHL experience. That was 2 years ago for the Florida Panthers. Last year, he played 30 games for the Panthers. This year, he's played 21 games. Riker Evans is somebody whose name I faintly know only because I've been doing a little bit of work on the Kraken just out of curiosity to see about looting them. Riker Evans, he's 23 years old, has 67 career NHL games played. So he's not exactly getting great opportunities of people to play with. Alexiak is one of their better defenders. Montour and Adam Larson, definitely better than Alexiak, but these goal splits are concerning. These scoring chance splits are concerning. And when you're a guy like Borgen, who your path to relevance in the NHL is sticking around, is being low event. Teams don't want third pair defensemen who there's a lot happening when there's on the ice. They don't want that. They want these games when the third pair and the fourth line are out there. They want the temperature of the game to come down. They don't want scoring chances for either team. They want the game to be a stalemate in the neutral zone, not a lot going on. And that brings us to where we could start to talk about transition play, one of my favorite things to talk about. I personally am very curious to see how these grade out because I haven't looked at what Borgen's transition stats look like. And I don't know enough about him off the top of my head to give you an accurate presentation of what he is. You know, a lot of my friends tell me he's got okay puck skills, but we're going to see that real quickly. So we'll start with zone exits. Now I can share my screen that I'm logged in. So make this a little bit bigger. All right. So this is this season, Seattle. Okay. So zone exits versus turnovers. On the bottom is clears. Clears would be defined as the alley-oop pass, the vertical pass that's high in the air so teams can exit the zone, the rim up along the boards, and the desperation heave. So you'll notice Seattle is clustered in the below average clears per 60, which would tell you they like to exit the zone with possession. Borgen checks in here, exits with possession per 60. He's above average. That's good. That tells me Borgen, with the puck on his stick, at least this season, is able to move the puck vertically and they're able to break out of the zone with control. Because if it were clear, he would be over further to the right. So let's look at last year as well, because I don't want to be misreflective. And Borgen is here. Borgen, more clears last year, but still an above average exits possession. That's good, though. You know, you think about some of the defensemen like Rasmus Dahlin, Miro Heiskanen. This is a good cluster to be in as far as what you want to see from a defenseman and their profile. That means when the puck ends up on their stick, that team is able to get out of the zone. And just for argument's sake, we'll look at 2 years ago as well. I think that was the year Seattle made the playoffs. I might be wrong, but Schultz, Larson. Oh, yeah, that's right. Will Borgen was not in the NHL that much 2 years ago. Still, above average exits with possession. That's encouraging. That's something I think that you should feel decent about. So exits by type, passes versus carries. This is defenseman. Yes. Okay. So Seattle. Mahura's not carrying them out. Larson is not carrying them out because carried exits is on the bottom. You see Vince Dunn, very mobile skater, somebody who's going to skate the puck out of trouble. Darnell Nurse is interesting to see there. Vlasic, who had a really nice year last year. Dahlin, that's probably Quinn. Yeah. So Alexiak, Larson, Borgen. So Borgen, below average carried per 60, past exits per 60, above average rate. That's good. So for context, if you look at the Rangers, they have two players above average at past exits per 60. Seattle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And Seattle's not a good team. But if you look at it in terms of carry out, Jones carries it out, Lindgren, Schneider, Keandre, Fox is all the way over here, passes them out at a very high rate. You see Ekholm, Severson, Sandberg, Luke Shen, Pellick. Hayden Fleury's funny to see because he doesn't play a lot. But when you look at the difference, this helps. Past exits out of the zone immensely helps the Rangers' issues. So we'll look at last year's just to be fair. We want to give full context. Borgen's here. Again, an above average rate of past exits per 60. He's a little bit closer to the average rate of carried exits. And look, most defensemen are not going to skate the puck out of their own zone to try and facilitate getting to offense. That's you're covering more ground. You know, we have two ways to get the puck where we want it. We can pass it or we can skate it. Ideally, you want to have a little bit of both, but Borgen, this isn't like a disqualifying range of statistics there. So next up, we will look over at retrievals because this does provide some context and I do think is interesting to see. So the further to the left you are, that means the more you mess up trying to exit your own zone. The further up you are, the better you are at breaking out of your own zone and moving on. So Borgen is here. This is not the greatest place to be. Ideally, you want to be further up. You know, Adam Pellick is up there. Vince Dunn. This is probably Sanderson. Yeah, Jake Sanderson. Hedman, Quinn, Sider. Osterley's funny to see there. Owen Power, Chris Tanev, McAvoy. You know, this is your cluster where you want to be because that means you get the puck and you get it out cleanly. To see Borgen down here, that's a little bit concerning. So let's compare that to the Rangers, where almost all of them are below average. You look at Miller, you see Jones, Trouba, Schneider. Every single one of the Rangers retrieves the puck at a rate below average. Retrieves the puck at a rate that leads to a breakout below average. That tells you the Rangers have transition issues. You compare that to Seattle. And again, Seattle is not a talented team to the degree the Rangers are. But you compare that to the Rangers, who are all below average in terms of retrievals leading to breakouts. Borgen being here is not great, but the simple matter of the fact is he's in the same ballpark as Trouba. He's in the same ballpark as Mancini. He's in the same ballpark as Adam Fox as far as retrievals leading to clears. And I would imagine because Seattle is a little bit more defense oriented and not as talented, that they're probably a little more aggressive in the neutral zone, which leads to more dump-ins, which means more retrieval opportunities. So I'm definitely curious to see how that shakes out. What was the other thing I wanted to look at? D-zone retrievals. No, where is entry defense here? This is the other thing I wanted to see. So when you look at this, Alexiak, Larson, this is Borgen, Vince Dunn, Montour, Borgen's here. Okay, so carry percentage tells you how often the other team skates at said player with the puck. So I'm imagining this is Trouba, right? Yeah, that's Jacob Trouba. Colin Miller, Isaiah George, that's a rookie. That guy, he's not ready for the NHL. Power, Dante Fabro, POJ, Romanov, Morgan Riley. These are very conservative defenders in the neutral zone. These are guys who do not step up, who are very passive. Seeing Borgen, where is it? Here, that tells you he's a little more aggressive. That tells you he steps up a bit more. And the fact that Borgen and his most common partner, Mahura, have very comparable rates of carrying, that tells you they do a reasonable job at their own blue line of preventing the other team from gaining the zone. Borgen being above average, that's encouraging because you look at the Rangers. They have two defensemen who prevent entries at an above average rate in Fox and Jones. Again, compare that to where Seattle is. Borgen is in the same category. He prevents entries at a comparable rate to Adam Fox. That is a functional and a useful tool the Rangers don't have a ton of, because you compare that to this, where Trouba and Miller common down here. Schneider and Miller have played together a little bit. When these guys are getting hemmed in their own zone, that starts because they can't prevent the entry to begin with. So adding Borgen, who has the ability to prevent entries at an above average rate, that's a useful skill set. That's something that the Rangers can use to their advantage. Now, I don't know who Borgen's going to play with. I don't understand. I don't necessarily know what the Rangers see in him or what they envision a role for him as. But as far as like tools, I can understand it. The issue, of course, becomes when we actually look at the on-ice results. That's where the cause for concern comes in when we're talking about William Borgen. And I want to pull up the heat maps from hockeyviz.com if that website will cooperate. It's not always the most efficient. So we'll start with Will Borgen. Looking at his heat map. So number one, let's share that screen. Wait, no, not that one. Here we go. Okay. So this is his hockeyviz.com heat map. So little power play work. That's not really of cause for concern here. He's not here to play on the power play. Isolated impact, blah, blah, blah. 27, turning 28 years old. Shootiness, 6% tells you he shoots the puck. We'll look at his individual scoring chances in relation to his teammates after this. But offensive zone. A lot of shots from the right-hand side, from the right point. That makes sense. He's a right-handed defenseman. He's going to be on that side of the ice. Some shots on the left, okay. Low rate, 5% below average expected goals per 60. Then you go defense. You look at where the shots are coming from. So you would expect him to be on this side of the ice as a right-handed defenseman. But the matter of the fact is, you see that pocket there on the left side. He's left. Oh, no, I'm looking at the wrong person. Excuse me. Yeah, Borgen is right-handed. I just wanted to clarify, not sound like too much of a dumbass. But when you see a defenseman who concedes at an above average rate, that's what this is. The red spots are where shots are most common from. So that left point, that makes sense. That's where teams are going to settle for shots if they're clogging. We're going to look at Seattle stuff in a minute as a team, and then we'll get into Borgen in a little more detail. But you can understand what the Rangers think they're going to do with William Borgen. That he's big, he's okay skater, he's got okay puck skills. They see this as a Trouba facsimile. And the thing about the word facsimile is it's not a true one-to-one replacement. It is a facsimile. It is a recreation. And I'm going to look at the edge stats. We'll look at the value stats in a minute as far as scoring chances, but let me get that up. We'll go Command F, Will Borgen, and we will look at his chance creation stuff. So, share screen. Where is natural stat trick? Here we go. Okay, how big is that? That's big enough. Okay. So, as we said, not a ton of NHL experience. This is an NHL player who is 28 years old today. Today is his 28th birthday. He has 247 career NHL games. That is not a lot of NHL experience for somebody at his age. Looking at the shot maps, well, not the shot maps, excuse me. Let's look at, this is chance creation data. This is natural stat trick. This is a very useful tool. On ice, this is his results in terms with and without his line mates. So when Borgen's been on the ice at 5-on-5, he's played 446 minutes. He's created 396 chances. He's been on the ice for 481 chances against. We go over here to shots, 163 shots for, 195 shots again for the Kraken when Borgen's been on the ice. 33% goal share is not great. 13 goals for, 26 goals against, that's concerning. You look at the expected goals against, 15 expected goals for, 21 expected goals against. You go over to high danger, 68 high danger chances for, 90 high danger chances against, 43% of the time. That's not great. You go over here to shooting percentage. So you can glean a little bit from this. So 5-on-5 shooting percentage is a little bit lower than regular shooting percentage because regular shooting percentage includes power play shots on goal as well. We would typically categorize average overall shooting percentage somewhere between 9 and 10%, and we would qualify league average goaltending in all situations between 900 and 910. It depends on the given year, but you see here, that number, that explains a lot of the goal share issues. You know, if this were closer to like 9-1 and it was still this bad, that would be a bit more concerning. Last year, the fact he was on the ice with 910 5-on-5 save percentage and was on the ice for 45% goals for, that's a little concerning. That's not great. So up here, we are looking at just him. These are just Borgen stats. So he's been credited with 23 shots on goal this year. He has scored 1 goal, 4.3%, 4.3 shooting percentage. His individual expected goals is 0.78. So if you add up his 81 scoring chances, individual, those are just Borgen scoring chances. Those 81 scoring attempts have been worth 0.78 expected goals. That is a very inefficient rate. These are very low quality chances, not something you want. He's not credited. And look, he's a defenseman. He's not going to be credited with a ton of high danger chances. One thing I did want to look at, I do want to look at this from a Kraken alone perspective, because I do want to see how much he shoots in relation to their other defensemen, to his line mates. No, we want individual. There we go. Individual, we'll go down to Seattle. So individual chances for Montour, a ton of chances. McCann, Schwartz, Larson, Borgstrand, Tanev, Tolvanen, Riker, Evans, Borgen, 81 individual scoring chances. He's created more individual scoring chances than Burakovsky, Yanni Gord, Shane Wright, Vince Dunn, Jordan Eberle, Chandler Stevenson. And I know some of these guys are injured and they have different responsibilities, but that's a lot of individual scoring chances for a defenseman. You know, for context, let's look at the Rangers, if natural stat trick will load. So we'll go down to the Rangers. This is individual chances, yes. So natural stat trick has Borgen credited with 81 scoring chances for. That would put him tied for 9th on the Rangers. That would have him with the same amount of chances as Will Cooley. And Borgen has played 446-42. So based on time on ice, 446-42 would put him here. That would put him between Trocheck and Panarin as far as ice time. So this might simply be a case of Borgen being asked to do maybe a little bit more than he's probably physically able to do. The fact that he's played that many minutes on a Seattle team that is not great leads me to believe that some of this is environment and it's not necessarily just him and his flaws that are getting them hurt at 5-on-5. But the next thing I wanted to look at, I always like looking at the NHL edge stats because I find them useful as far as measuring how functional a player is. And here, this is a great resource again. We want Will Borgen. Okay. This is for this season, and let's look. So, this is encouraging. Top skating speed doesn't necessarily matter. Speed burst over 20 miles per hour, 87th percentile. That's pretty good. The shot stuff, I don't particularly care about, but this skating stuff at this size, that's encouraging. To be 75th percentile, 22 plus, to be 87th percentile, 20 to 22. And look, I understand for a defenseman, one speed burst over 2 miles an hour being 75th percentile seems a bit ridiculous, but being that it's not common for defensemen, that's encouraging. 20 to 28 does not sound like a lot of speed. It does not sound like a lot considering most of these teams have played close to 30 games at this point, but that is a relatively high percentile. And that leads me to believe he is an above average skater. And at his size, that is something that is valuable. To be 6'3", to be over 200 pounds, and to be an above average skater, that's encouraging to me. That tells me that maybe with some tweaks, the Rangers might be able to do something functional here. And look, we are not expecting a lot. Or I should say, I'm not expecting a lot. I can't speak for you if you're watching this stream right now, but the Kraken are not a particularly good team. And granted, I know the Rangers' record is not very good, and they have been playing abominable hockey. The Rangers are significantly more talented Seattle. That's the difference there. So I will close the NHL Edge stat. I will come back up full screen. I want to pull up Evolving Wild. I want to look at both the charts and the player cards. So this is goals above replacement. And okay, this one is going to open your eyes, but hang on. Ooh, excuse me. Had to sneeze pretty bad there. Where is it? Okay. So this is Evolving Wild's goals above replacement chart for this season. So you see Dunn, McCann, Larson, Bjorkström, blah, blah, blah. Borgen's dead last on the Kraken this season in goals above replacement. Sneezing as often as I do and as violently as I do is not great. So that's this season. Let's look at last year and see if it's any better. So last year, which you would qualify as Borgen's probably best season as a pro, above average offensive goals above replacement and above average defensive goals above replacement. His positive value last year made him a net positive player. And you compare that to some of the players below him in the pecking order, that's encouraging. That's something that feels workable, that there's the possibility that what's going wrong in Seattle for him this year is something that might be able to be fixed. Hang on, got to sneeze again. And yes, before you ask, I did take multiple Claritin before this. Okay. So I want to pull up Will Borgen's 3-year card. You're going to watch my react. Yeah. Below average expected goals rate, below slightly above average offense, but it creates a net negative value. We'll do 1 year, just last year, and see if this is more functional. This is better. 33rd and 34th percentile for goals above replacement is not great, but we're talking about a third pair defenseman who doesn't play a ton of minutes. And we can stop sharing that. Okay, so we've done all three zones. We've done the common line mates. We have done the individual chances. We've done the line chances. The big picture here, and it's very straightforward. Borgen's 28 years old. He's got less than 300 career NHL games played. You combine that with the fact that he's a free agent after this season and the Rangers' current situation. The Rangers don't want to play Victor Mancini right now. And I think Mancini might eventually be an NHL player. Right now, he's not. The game is too fast. He can't process it fast enough. And they don't want to kill his confidence by getting caved in at the NHL level. And I can understand that. I don't necessarily agree. I think if the season is as cooked as it might be, the Rangers might be better off just letting him, for lack of a better word, eat his L now. But as far as what you can expect, Borgen is not somebody you want to notice. In an ideal world, Borgen blends in and is forgotten about, because if we're noticing him, who's not going to play a lot, he's not going to play more than Adam Fox, he's not going to play more than Braden Schneider as a right-handed defenseman. So if you're noticing him, that should be a cause for concern, because he's not going to play a lot, he's not going to be asked to do a lot. He is going to be asked to be a slightly above replacement level defenseman. He's going to play lower minutes than he did in Seattle. He's probably going to get easier quality of competition than he has in Seattle. Now, none of that is a guarantee he's actually going to be able to play well. That is an entirely different conversation, and something that I can't definitively tell you yes or no he's going to be good or bad. All of the data would tell you that he is probably a slightly below replacement level NHL player. That in an ideal world, Will Borgen is your seventh defenseman. That if you have an injury and he draws in, you're not in bad shape. If he were your Chad Ruhwedel, that would not be bad. But the problem for the Rangers is right now, especially with the Keandre Miller injury, they need an eighth defenseman. And most teams in the NHL do not have 8 NHL caliber defensemen. They don't. Most teams will carry a seventh guy, but once you have to dip down to the AHL to get someone, and I know Borgen's not an AHLer, but he's effectively filling the role of what would have been an AHLer because you have Ruhwedel as well. The Rangers have real issues they need to fix, and Borgen is not fixing them. As much as he might be better than Mancini right now, the issues the Rangers have fundamentally start with a team commitment to defense. That means the forwards helping. That means the defensemen talking to each other, communicating, sending one guy off to the other. And Andrew and I spent a lot of time last night kind of being frustrated with this from the Kakko perspective, that he was a net positive. I don't understand why you got rid of a net positive other than to spite him for speaking out about being benched or just trying to shake things up for the sake of shaking things up. But we can be clear about this. EJ Radick is on drugs. The Rangers are not getting a first-round pick for Will Borgen. This is a 28-year-old today with less than 300 career NHL games. He is not getting a first-round pick. The Rangers probably could have gotten Will Borgen for like a fifth or a fourth-round pick. This is not somebody who is of note, who is particularly unique, particularly gifted. This is an average to slightly below average NHL defenseman. Right now, that's better than what the Rangers currently have, which is why he's here. I don't expect a whole lot, but God willing, he's forgettable in a good way, that you don't notice him. He's not somebody who's going to do a whole lot positively or negatively, and he just kind of blends in. In an ideal world, that's a good outcome for what Will Borgen can be. I like the move for Seattle. I talked about it with Hunter Hodes on Locked On NHL today. It's a dart throw if you're Seattle. Kakko's a good, not great hockey player. He's very good at the things he's good at. His puck skills have never really come along. You can very clearly watch him read the play as it's happening as opposed to being able to act instinctually. So I don't think Kakko is bound for greatness anywhere. I think he'll be a 40 to 55, 60-point guy if he can sneak onto a power play. I think he'll give you okay, slightly above average defense, okay as a puck carrier and somebody who can on occasion chip in the greasy goal in and around the net mouths. But the puck skills being deficient as they were, the processing, the decision-making being what they are, I understand. Look, I understand why the Rangers are frustrated. I understand why Drury cut bait. I do. As much as I think Kakko is a useful player and a good NHL player, I can understand why Chris Drury did what he did. I don't agree with it, but I can understand it. And it is the sign of a desperate man. And unfortunately for the Rangers, their general manager is desperate right now because he has the one free agent he's actually spent real money on, Vincent Trocheck, having to go out there and tell Vince and Molly, oh no, we didn't have a meeting about the general manager. We love the general manager. We know what he's doing in spite of all other reporting. So be that as it may, I will be taking Vincent Trocheck's comments with a grain of salt. Somebody who has every benefit to lie, somebody who is very heavily featured amongst the Ranger media contingent, somebody who lets the Rangers use his kid for their social media content for free. I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you may at least be semi-familiar with the Vince Mercogliano article that came out this morning, where Vince reported the team's social media people haven't traveled with the team since last year because of something that happened behind the scenes. Like, don't go assuming or projecting just because you had a certain opinion of them. That's not fair to the parties involved. You don't know what happened definitively. So I'm going to leave that part of it at that. But Trocheck has every reason to lie. He's on Team USA because Drury's the assistant general manager for Four Nations. Drury gave him life-changing amounts of money to be here. He is the poster boy for what Chris Drury has wanted to do for the Rangers. It benefits Trocheck immensely to lie about this and to try and quell the nerves and get everybody convinced that everything's fine and all they need to do is win a few games. And we're all going to forget about this. But that's not how it works. As much as the Rangers would like us to not have object permanence, to, be the toddler playing got your nose, we know better. We are not stupid. As much as the Rangers treat us like we are, we're not stupid. But that'll do it for this very weird Will Borgen evaluation. In summation, he's probably slightly better than what Mancini is right now. They would rather have a veteran there because if they feel like if they cook Mancini's confidence now, he'll never be an NHLer. I don't think Mancini is anything of note. He might be an NHLer, but right now, I'm not entirely convinced of that. Unless there's more news, I will talk to you guys tomorrow. We'll have a game stream ahead of time. We'll do the Stars game on NHL 25. We'll talk a little bit about the matchup. We'll talk maybe Panarin comes back. Who knows? I'll talk to you guys then.